What, am I the only one that did this while watching Bridgerton? What's going on? What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today I'm taking a look at the Netflix original series Bridgerton, which released on Christmas Day. So if you're like me and you missed it, guys, this is a spoiler-free review, so you can watch this without having any of the storylines spoiled for you. It is an 8-episode series coming in at just about an hour for each episode, so it's a very quick watch. It's easy to digest, and if you know Shonda Rhimes, not only is she a legend, but yeah, you know this show's going to be full of a ton of mess, drama, intrigue, the works. The series is based on novels by Julia Quinn and takes place in 1813 London, where wealth, lust, and betrayal are afoot. After one girl is named this season's incomparable by the Queen, she goes from struggling to find love to catching the eyes of many, including a duke. However, when a mysterious author spreads the gossip of the town, it causes controversy and unearths some things that were otherwise hidden. I'm getting riled up all over again just thinking about it. But guys, before I get into my review and tell you what I loved and what I didn't like about Bridgerton, if it's your first time here, welcome to Real James, where I talk about movies and TV series like this all the time. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below. Help us get to 5,000 subscribers. Tap on that bell and go ahead and smash that like button. And let me know, guys, in the comments if you've seen this. Were you satisfied by the finale? And who was your favorite character? I'll talk to you guys about who were my favorite characters. So let's get into it, y'all. This show is dramatic. If you pressed play with any expectation that Bridgerton would be full of lust, betrayal, gossip, and scandal, well, you're gonna be happy. And those are the expectations that I had getting into this series. I expected nothing less but over-the-top theatrics and a ton of melodrama, and that is what Shonda Rhimes and her cast and crew delivered. I did find myself hooked after one episode, and it surprised me that all of the storylines they introduced were pretty gripping. Usually I'm cautiously optimistic when a story can go ahead and introduce so many different plot threads, especially in a show that is maybe only 8 to 10 episodes long. Luckily, I don't think every storyline got bogged down. However, I'll talk about it later in this review. There were a couple that I wish they maybe touched on a little bit more. And a huge reason why I enjoyed Bridgerton is Shonda Rhimes for bringing together the talent to make this one of the more engaging shows of 2020. Even though I watched it this year, guys, thinking about the shows we got last year, there were a lot of these, I don't know, very serious shows that honestly took themselves very seriously, and Bridgerton didn't all of the time. Yeah, there were some undertones that were very mature, but for the most part, Shonda Rhimes has a formula that works from episode to episode. Now, if you don't know Shonda Rhimes, she's the leader behind Grey's Anatomy and Scandal, so if you are a fan of those shows, I think you'll enjoy the themes of Bridgerton. All of the over-the-top theatrics really did make me either laugh or gasp. I'm used to it by this point. I actually really enjoyed the fact that the show didn't really hold back, and there were some intimate scenes. The entirety of episode 6 basically was pretty darn revealing. Now, I expected it, but we're not getting that on cable TV. I also am a huge fan of the costume and set designs. They are very authentic, especially the Queen's wigs, but I do love the fact that this did feel like the Regency era England that the show kind of promised from episode 1. There were some obvious moments of green screen, but that didn't come too often, so I do appreciate the vision behind the show and the attention to detail. Now let's dive deeper into the cast, which is very much bought into every performance. There's not one moment where I felt like someone maybe wasn't really bought into the scene. A lot of actors are just chewing up their surroundings. Like, there are some very exaggerated moments in this show, but I'm not gonna lie, guys, it just worked. Even though our main story revolves around the compelling Daphne, played by Phoebe Dynevor, and the Duke of Hastings himself, Simon, played by Regé-Jean, the surrounding cast is full of gems. Now here's what I'm really excited to talk about, which are my favorite characters. So yes, Daphne and Simon are really good, but we gotta talk about Lady Danbury. She deserves some love. She's played by Adjoa Andoh, and man, there's something about her swagger, what she brings to each scene that she's featured in, that made me sort of gravitate towards her. I feel like she stole every scene she was in, and then there's this boss move she does at the very end of the show in episode 8, and you'll see it. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it, guys. It was so cool. And here's a character I feel like isn't talked about enough in Bridgerton, which is Eloise, played by Claudia Jessie. Even though she is really the oddball out of her family, which is comprised of, royalty and a lot of, men that feel like they're big and strong, and I feel like she falls outside the norm of what it means to be a part of society in London during this time. I like that she's an author, she's writing, she's not necessarily taking too much time to worry about getting callers, she doesn't care about being wed, she just wants to live a life of her own. And then we move on to a character who's pretty much the complete opposite of Eloise. It's Simon. Regé-Jean Page is just such a good actor. I don't know, I really fell in love with how he was able to have a certain amount of range for his character, because not only is he serious when he needs to be, but when he's not the Duke of Hastings and he's simply Simon, I think that it just works very well. I mean, he is really just giving us a lot of emotion, and there were times where he was tearing up, and I even felt a certain amount of feelings. I'm like, man, I don't know how you're doing this, but I'm about to cry. And lastly, there's Lady Featherington, played by Polly Walker. I think I fell in love with her character arc. She had more dynamic appeal to her character than a lot of the others in this show. She goes from basically being a single mother in a way. Even though she is married, her husband is non-existent. He has gambling and alcohol issues, and she is tasked with kind of uplifting her family and trying to preserve the Featherington name. I love that she cares so much for her daughters, and I do appreciate the fact that the writers did pay attention to her for a large part of this season, so she was able to get a huge and complete arc that I definitely appreciated. The show is better because of it. So we have a good cast, we have some decent writing, and oh my goodness, we have an amazing amount of drama. But was the drama, intrigue, and all of the mystery worth it by the finale? I would have to say it was. It was 8 episodes long. I love that the show didn't overstay its welcome, and when the final credits ran, I feel like it was a satisfying conclusion for most of our characters. Now, I can't imagine this show getting a second season, but it might after being one of Netflix's most viewed shows in 2020. It was seen by over 63 million households. Guys, when a show does that, you can bet that they're probably thinking about a second season. Now, I don't know where they would necessarily go. There are some ideas, especially with that ominous ending for one of our characters, but I do believe that the show is good where it is. Just leave it be, and it would be fine. Now, with all that being said, guys, there are a couple of things that I didn't feel Bridgerton did as well as everything else that we talked about. One of them being the ability to handle multiple storylines. So even though I feel like the writers did a decent job at handling and balancing a lot of these different threads, I do think that there are some characters that didn't get enough love for me to really care about when they got their solo moments. And there are two that come to mind, one of them being Marina Thompson, played by Ruby Barker, who does a really good job as Miss Marina Thompson. Now, her storyline is very layered. There's a lot that you can kind of unpack from her character, but by the end of this series, it did feel like they rushed through her progression as a character, and I almost feel like they didn't pay her enough love throughout the season for that ending to be as impactful as I think they wanted it to be. Now, this happens with Anthony Bridgerton as well, and even though I do like the performance there and I think the character is actually pretty interesting, I think that they were just kind of dilly-daddling along the way with a certain love interest of Anthony, and then when you get to the final 10 minutes of the show, that's when you get his arc sort of resolved. They don't really flesh out his character as much as I feel like I wanted them to, and that's the big issue, is that when you have multiple storylines, some characters kind of get left off to the side until the very end. But by then I think it's just too little too late. I'm also a little sad that we didn't get an episode solely dedicated to Lady Danbury and Simon. They both have a very interesting past together. He is basically looking for a mother of his own, and Lady Danbury fills the void. As a young boy, Simon was unable to speak properly, and Lady Danbury helped him get through that very hard time in his life, and I feel like they should have touched on that more. Unfortunately, outside of a couple of flashbacks and some exposition towards the end, we don't get too much time spent with them in the past, and I feel like that would have only helped us grow a deeper connection with the characters in present time. And then there's just one more thing about Bridgerton we need to talk about, and that's the pacing. I feel like the writing in between the drama and those big grand moments wasn't always strong. I feel in the middle of episodes is where I kind of got uninterested sometimes, outside of episodes 1, 4, and 5, which were I feel the more consistent episodes of this series. But it's always at that 30-minute mark that I saw my interest kind of go down, and not in a bad way, because by the end of episodes there were crumbs that were left for me to get hooked all over again. But sometimes storylines were just not as interesting as our A plots. Our B plots were sometimes hit and sometimes miss. So even though I feel like the beginning and ends of most episodes were really strong, it's the meat in the middle that was lacking. But overall, you guys, Bridgerton is one show where if you come into it with loose expectations, you just want drama, you want mystery, and you want a lot of intimacy, because trust me, there is a lot of that. You're going to enjoy this show. I really enjoyed the fact that Bridgerton didn't take itself seriously, and for the most part there were some solid performances. There wasn't one performance that I thought, this wasn't very good. Each character was really brought to life, even though sometimes I really wanted them to focus more on certain areas. For the most part, this show did a good job at giving everyone a little bit of the screen, and I think that only helps in the end of the show because we understand a lot of our characters' motivations. The series is only 8 episodes, so it's going to be easy to binge watch, and again guys, if you are familiar with the formula with Shonda Rhimes and her shows, you're gonna really appreciate that Bridgerton is pretty much that, stuck in 1813. Now, did I want a little bit more out of Bridgerton sometimes? I did. There were some characters that had their backgrounds exposed a little bit, and I wanted the spotlight kind of to shine brightly on areas of their lives, and we didn't get there with some of the Bridgerton boys and even some of the women in this show. But again, you guys, Bridgerton is one of those shows where you're going to forget about your problems every time you hit play, and it's just a nice bit of escapism. There's enough drama here for you to chat about it with your friends, and this is a show that if you're watching it in 2021, yeah, I'm still a little stressed about 2020, so this would be a good stress reliever for you too. Alrighty guys, well there you have it. That was my real review of Bridgerton, a show I would probably give like a 3.5 out of 5 if I needed to rate it. It's not the best show I've seen in 2020, but it is one of the more dramatic shows that I've watched in 2020, and I do appreciate the fact that there is a vision here that Shonda Rhimes executes all the way. But hey, if you don't want to miss out on any more reviews just like this, guys, don't forget to go ahead and hit the big red button below and stay subscribed to the channel. I have my review for Vanessa Kirby's new film, Pieces of a Woman, that's getting some awards buzz. That's going to drop very soon on the channel. And next week, my top 10 movies of 2020 so far. And the reason that's dropping next week is because your boy might have just secured a little screening for One Night in Miami. I can't wait for that film. Regina King is a boss. Alrighty, you guys. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. Now, where did I throw my tea? Let me... It's empty. Oh no.